I mean, it's one of those Japanese games that like Metal Wolf Chaos is one of those Japanese games where on paper it should be terrible, but then you play it and you realize if you look at this as if you play Metal Wolf Chaos as a Japanese person's parody of like it came out, I think Metal Wolf Chaos came out in 2003, 2002.
Just about.
So basically, it came out after 9/11 with all of the
Hmm.
jingoism that was coming out of America, and it's a parody of that from the viewpoint of someone from Japan who doesn't understand American politics or
It seems
how
like
any of that works.
it
It's
it has a
hilarious,
lot of Team USA love in it. I do love that.
but
I guess I
sorry, go
guess
ahead.
yeah, no, I was about to say it was because since it's early from soft mech combat, I'm just thinking, ooh, you guys definitely got better. But go on.
Well, I mean, you have to remember at that point they were coming off of Armored Core, which
Right.
was actually a really good series. But this is their parody joke series. It's
Hmm.
like the different it's like going from Gradius to Parodius, even though functionally except Parodius, even though it's a parody of Gradius, actually plays really well. It's just got really weird levels. It's like, hey, you want to shoot this dancing flamenco girl? Sure, why not? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's introduce ourselves and then dive into these stories. Starting with, we'll let the younger guy go first. Louis, introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you. Name's Louis. Pleased to meet you.
All right, Kanoshi, introduce yourself.
That's Kanoshi Abominito. The more I see of Street Fighter Six, the more uh, know that it seems like, at least when it comes to the character models, that they actually care about the character models as if with Street Fighter Five. It's like what was going on there? Uh, designs don't look like the new Guile. Doesn't look
Yeah, no,
looks pretty good.
Street Fighter 5 had this huge problem where a bunch of artists had their own vision for it,
Yeah,
and then they just kept clashing with each other because you look at some launch characters compared to some of the characters that came out recently, you can just tell they're just
night
going
and
for
day.
completely
Yeah,
different.
night and
Yep.
day. But the new Guile looks like okay. This is Guile. It's been some years. He's an older dude, but he can still fuck somebody up. You know, it's like,
And he has hair now. It's not like a cheese block anymore.
yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
like it always was hair. It's just we didn't have the graphical fidelity to make it look like hair. Like, you know, but now he
And
has hair. He's got the little thing. He's older, so he's got the little like timer, like equalizer style, where he's like,
mhm.
"Look, I'm gonna give you 60 seconds, and I'm gonna fuck you up in this next minute. Let's go." It's like, hey, look, he might not be as fast as he used to, but them
Right.
flash kicks and them double low kick, it still hits hard.
Oh yeah.
You can
Yeah,
watch the trailer.
don't
He beats the shit out of Ryu. Ryu's like, "Yeah, I'm Mr. Dark Hado. Yeah, you gonna get your ass kicked. Come over here, Junior."
And one fantastic
Mr. Dark
one
Hado, I'll put my foot in your ass.
he should have went home. He should have went home and went. He should have went home to be a family man.
Well, I mean, that's what he says. He said back in Street Fighter 2, you should have stayed your ass in the mountains, Ryu. You shouldn't have brought your ass down to the base. Now I'm gonna kick your ass.
Yeah,
Yes. I'm a Colonel Guile fan, and it's not because I'm rah rah America. I just always liked Colonel Guile I thought he had a cool theme song, and I liked his technical area controlling abilities.
yeah. Don't sleep on those charge characters.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Except Balrog, fuck Balrog.
Yeah,
But every other charge character is pretty cool, except Balrog. Fuck that
Blanca
guy.
fan forever.
What?
I'm a Blanca fan forever.
I mean, I like Blanca. It's just the problem with Blanca is that you have to use almost a rushing gameplay style to really use Blanca. Because if you use his electrocution attack at the wrong time, you're basically left wide open for someone to Hado you or
Hmm.
whatever projectile attack they can use, and you're fucked. You know, so
Right.
like I think in terms of the characters who have attacks where they can just basically kind of get you in a corner and fuck you up bad, I think Blanca kind of has the like he has the most high reward high risk one. His electricity, whereas Chun Li and E Honda, if they get you in a corner like Chun Li has her multi kick thing. I forgot the name of it. It's not the spinning bird kick. That's her
Yeah, we
helicopter
just
thing.
call it lightning legs.
Lightning kick.
Yeah, lightning kick, and E Honda has his 100-hand slap. Now, if you if you use his weakest 100-hand slap and get someone in a corner with it and they can't block, oh man, E Honda with that 100-hand slap is just ridiculous.
Yeah, funny enough, he's actually because they publish online winning stats for Street Fighter V every month. Honda has held on to the #1 spot since he came out.
What, for beating people's asses?
In the rookie ranks, yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, he is he is E Honda. He is a Yokozuna. He is a sumo wrestler. And like, you look at sumo wrestlers and you're like, oh man, those dudes are really out of shape. But they just have like subcutaneous fat. Underneath that fat is so much fucking muscle. It's ridiculous. But anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to Street Fighter 6. I wasn't like Kenoshi, who had an apoplexy when he saw the first Trial of the Sailor, the trailer. He's like, what? What the fuck is this shit?
Yeah, because I had a dream after playing Guilty Gear Strive. I just had hope that the new Street Fighter would look something close to that. So that's kind of why I was upset.
You got salty. You got kind of salty.
Yeah.
No, I understand. I really do understand why you felt the way you did. I'm not going to cast aspersions because, look, I felt the same way when I played when they showed the trailer for what was the game that I had a reaction like that? Origami King.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember when that trailer they just dropped it out of nowhere, and it was so amazing the first time, and then maybe months later, I just heard everyone just dogging it.
Well, the first time. No, go ahead, Kenoshi.
I was gonna say, yeah, Capcom, you should, it'd be kind of cool if they gave Arc System like license to make another alpha game. At least that.
I'd
Let's
be cool
get
with that.
2D looking Street Fighter game.
That's actually a pretty popular request.
Yeah, I mean, or it doesn't even have to be alpha. If Arc System Works was paid to make like a classic 2D cell shaded Street Fighter game, I'd be cool with that. But I also realize that, like, while there is a huge amount of people that like that style, and I'm one of them, I also realize that the franchise kind of it has to change over time. I would have loved to have cell shaded graphics stay the same, or at least be refined over time. But unfortunately, we can't have that. We've had to move towards these ugly fucking, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, these ugly 3D models.
Yeah, I'll admit Capcom has gotten better, especially since they're no longer using Unreal and using the
own
RE engine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
and
worked at the kinks because after seeing Street Fighter 6, Devil May Cry 5 looks so fucking ugly.
Yeah.
yeah, and SNK seems like they're getting a bit better with their 3D models with their new King of Fighters.
Yeah,
But-
yeah. It looks great, but SNK, I can't buy their shit anymore. I'm like, nope. No matter how good this looks, I cannot buy it. And their games, like, I was really looking forward to Metal Slug Tactics, but I'm like, nope. But if any of you guys buy it, tell me how good it is, or if it sucks.
Will do.
Let me know. Yeah, so anyway, but speaking of games that have kind of abandoned their core fan base, that's not a fair segue at all. Final Fantasy 16 is going completely real-time combat, it's turning just into an action game. I'm not gonna lie, the trailer looks amazing, but I also don't really want to play a Final Fantasy game that doesn't have turn-based combat. I would have been happier had they just stolen the refinement of the active time battle system that they had in Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah.
rather than trying to make it to an action game. But this is where we're going. They want to grab a bigger market by watering down the fan base.
I agree. In fact, if they had gone that way, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. I would have actually liked that. Those are my thoughts on this personally. Final Fantasy is just, I've just been less and less enthused by the franchise for the past 20 years now. Unfortunately, and I saw the trailer, and the thing is, as a action oriented, as an action gamer myself, I'm happy to see Square improve in their action department, but that doesn't really go hand in hand in how I like to view Final Fantasy. It's just become, especially since Final Fantasy isn't really a sequential series; it's just anthological or thematic. It just it's just sad to see it just go the international route just to go for bigger dollars. I mean, it's their decision in the end, but it's like seeing someone go through so much plastic surgery that they just look like an action figure now.
Yeah, or Barbie.
Yeah.
Um, Kenoshi, your thoughts?
Um, I think the new Final Fantasy 16 looks, at least in my opinion, looks pretty good. Seems
Yeah.
like they're actually putting some work into it, but at the same time, it's like it's gone through so many different changes that it's, at least at its core, it's barely recognizable as Final Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this game, aside from
Some of the
aside from
tropes of Final Fantasy, it doesn't play like a Final Fantasy.
yeah, it looks like it's leaning heavily on classic Final Fantasy tropes, at least as pertaining
Oh yeah,
to
you can
obviously
summons
the
and all that stuff.
yeah, a lot of those summons look pretty familiar.
Yeah, Ifrit looks
The
badass
leaning
as
on
fuck. I'm not gonna
crystals.
lie.
Yeah. And it seems like they're really going heavy on the voice acting, at least in the English department compared to some of the earlier games or the more recent games. It's like,
uh,
Yeah.
I
I could
mean,
agree with that because honestly, I think they've always wanted to go into a higher production voice. I think because Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 7 remake are mostly used anime voice seasoned anime voice actors or lesser knowns, which isn't a bad thing, but these guys feel like they're in a just a
more
rung above.
professional, more
Yeah.
international. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
the way I feel about voice acting in games is if it's decent, I'm happy. I like the problem with me is that most of the games I play that have like English voice acting, the characters are too fucking chatty, and I'm like, shut the fuck up. So
Yeah.
How do you get through Xenoblade then?
I turned it off.
Woo!
Yeah, I
Well, the
turned it
thing
off.
about
I'm like, I'm tired of hearing you. Shut
yeah,
the fuck up.
yeah, the thing about Xenoblade is it didn't the voice acting bothered some people, but it didn't bother me because it's like it's different than your typical Funny Nation, Viz Media voice
Yeah, they
acting that
had
you
English. They
hear
had
constantly.
British voice actors,
Yeah,
so it
these are.
sounded. But I turned in the Wii version. You could switch between Japanese or English voice acting in that game.
Mhm.
So I switched it off and went to Japanese. So I
Oh, I couldn't do that. I can't listen to chatter if I don't understand it.
didn't bother me. Well, I mean, you have like they say something and then you have the subtitle what they said, so you get like if they say a phrase, you
Well,
get it.
not in battle. That is.
No, but I mean, like a lot of that. If you watch a lot of anime with subs, you know what they're saying, like
Oh, I guess
"Tatometa,"
I.
let's
Oh, I
finish it,
never adjusted then.
shit like that. Yeah.
But yeah.
Um,
Yeah. These are the same dudes I think that do Final Fantasy 14 dubbing. Since when I look at their credits, there's a lot of overlap.
yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
do that. I didn't play Final Fantasy 14 because I was like, why the fuck would I want to pay a subscription fee to play a Final Fantasy MMO? Plus, I never thought Final Fantasy should be in an MMO anyway. But apparently,
Mm.
Yoshi P, the guy who's been and his team who've been in charge of shepherding Final Fantasy 14 from the dumpster fire filled with dirty diapers that it was, is in charge of making Final Fantasy 16. So
Yeah, I mean, it definitely shows. There's a lot of Final Fantasy 14 spring. I mean, from What the little I've played of Final Fantasy and from some of the trailers I've seen of Final Fantasy 14, um, seems like it's got a lot of Final Fantasy 14 influence pertaining to its
Um,
presentation.
yeah,
Hmm.
because they Square has this new artist who I really, really admire. Since the artist for Tactics in Final Fantasy 12, who in my opinion was the best artist they ever had, he left the company to work, I think, for Grand Blue and stuff. Um, they ended up putting this new guy in charge who can very much replicate his style so closely that I never knew that I didn't know they had replaced him.
Yeah, it's
But
better than the guy who did the Enuma, who did
yeah,
the stuff for Kingdom Hearts. Those fucking ugly, all those fucking
right.
zippers everywhere. He's like Rob Liefeld, son of a bitch. Sorry.
No, no, I hear you. Yeah, no, I have a lot of opinions on that artist myself, but yeah, no, they I think they put him in at least in charge of creative direction or character designs,
Hmm.
whichever. And but one, I mean, even though it looks drab, the atmosphere, I'll give it plus because I'll give it props because I do like the character design at
Oh
least.
yeah,
Something about it very, I won't say Western fantasy, but very European France-like fantasy
yeah.
comic looking.
It looks like he is very much mimicking the guy who did the art. Like the art, remember the art? Like, well, you're probably not old enough, Louis, but I remember back in the day looking at the manuals for Final Fantasy 4, 5, and 6, and how the art style was drastically different than the art style of a lot of other fantasy RPGs. And I remember, like, it's basically like the artist for this looked at that and said, I can modernize it for a more modern age in terms of the
Right.
graphical art style. Like, Ifrit still looks like Ifrit, Shiva still looks like Shiva, Odin or Rama still looks like Odin or Rama. Maxwell still looks like Maxwell. Um, like the summons still look the same, but they're like modernized, but you can still tell who they are. Not like that bullshit they did in Final Fantasy 13 where it's like, oh, you summon this so and so. Who the fuck is this? Who
Yeah,
is
no,
this?
yeah, the summon redesigns, depending on who's in charge of that, can just look straight up alien sometimes. Like the Final Fantasy 8 summons, all of them just look awful to me.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. But anyway, so yeah, for me, Final Fantasy 16, I'm kind of sad to see um, the like I would have preferred like if they want to make a actiony Final Fantasy, I think they need to split the brand and just do like Final Fantasy Legend would
Right.
be kind of like or call it Final Fantasy Legacy or whatever. And that would be like old school turn-based combat style stuff. Those don't have to be your most expensive games. Like they may be a budget of like 50 to 60 million for your big shit, your actiony stuff where you've got to have really good graphics. Okay, make that as actiony as you want and westernized. But I mean, personally, I prefer old school Final Fantasy to new school Final Fantasy. I think the last Final Fantasy I really enjoyed was 12.
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny because they're actually doing a reverse as to what most JRPG franchises are doing. For example, Legend of Heroes probably went ahead and wanted to do something more turn-based JRPG like, and then sorry, East probably did. And then Legend of Heroes was born, and Atlas wanted to do something a bit more cozier, and then Persona was born from SMT, something like that. But Final Fantasy did the reverse way, where they completely kicked the old man downstairs and said, "You get all right. You want that old shit? Get Bravely Default there."
but Bravely Default sucks.
Unfortunately, I mean, I played. It's a nice throwback to those old
But it's
games, and
not
it's
good.
very pretty. Yeah, it's just not like. And the thing is, the combat, well, it was innovative at the time. I just thought it's pretty straightforward. It's just a more juiced up, abusable version of what SMT does. But yeah, no, they just they seem like no. You know what these are? This isn't a throwback to the Final Fantasies 1 through 6. It's more like a throwback to just Final Fantasies 1 through 3.
Yeah, yeah. That's what Bravely Default is. It's a throwback, specifically three. It's just a throwback
Yeah.
to Final Fantasy three. But here's a little secret: Final Fantasy three not that good.
Uh,
Final. I'm gonna tell you, Final Fantasy didn't start to get really, really like iconically good until it hit the 16-bit era with the Super Nintendo slash
so
Super
four, five,
Famicom.
six.
4, 5, and 6. That's when
Okay.
Final Fantasy started to get really good. Because Final Fantasy IV basically is the first Final Fantasy that had a coherent and personal story. Because Final Fantasy I story is basic as
Pretty
fuck.
minimalist. You just go to story beats. Yeah.
Yeah, go here, do this. Go here, do this. Go here, do this. Final Fantasy II, actually, Final Fantasy II had a really good story too. The problem is that Final Fantasy II's battle system was too advanced for what they, for the level that they had at the time. Because basically, Final Fantasy II's battle system is kind of like what they eventually would put into the Saga series, where like if you want to get good at using swords, equip swords and use swords, and your stats with swords go up. If you want to be good at defending, equip 2 shields and just have enemies attack you, and you'll basically your defense will go up with shields. You want to use magic, equip 2 magic books and just cast magic continuously, and you'll get better at using magic.
Right.
Like basically what you do makes you what you are. So if you want to make your character into the ultimate warrior, you can do that. You want to make a character into a barehanded monk type character, you can do that. Like that's a really revolutionary battle system. The problem is that it was too advanced for most gamers. Now, I have played and beaten Final Fantasy II many times. I actually like it. I think the story, aside from the art aesthetics, the story is really fucking dark in Final Fantasy II.
Mm-hmm.
So many party members die in that game. Like it's
That they ended up making a crazy epilogue for them on the Game Boy port.
yeah, I mean, and not only do so many characters die, but in Final Fantasy II, like here's how dark Final Fantasy II is. In the beginning of the game, you haven't even really started to hit your stride. There's this town you have to go to, and you find out, oh, your character's like, oh, we can help these people. And you're like, oh, yeah, these people are in this town. They're sick. They're going to die. And if you go over here and get this MacGuffin and come back to the town, you can save everyone in the town. And you're like, yeah, I'll do this quest. You come back, some people came and killed all those motherfuckers. And you find their bodies and shit. I'm like, God damn, this is for kids.
Right.
Final Fantasy II is really, really dark. Like it is like, and also if you play the NES version, there are like 2 or 3 items or skills or whatever that are fundamentally broken in that game.
Blood
So
sword, and it's just hidden away, like with no way of finding it. But if you do find it, it's a wrap.
well, I mean, not just that. There's like 2 other items you can find in the game that are fundamentally broken. That you literally like. I don't mean broken in your favor. I mean like Ultima. Ultima is supposed to be the ultimate black magic spell in the game, and it's supposed to take all like if you master all the other black magic. Like all the other black magic in the game and then give that to a character, give Ultima to them, it will do massive amounts of damage. However, it was never properly calibrated in the code. And even though Hironobu Sakaguchi told the programmer to fix that shit and they didn't. So Ultima is supposed to be the ultimate kill anything black magic spell. It's basically Meteo before Meteo. Broken in the NES port of in the NES version of Final Fantasy II. It would not get fixed until the Game Boy Advance port.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Or I think you could like get a patch for it later on after the fact if you were emulating it. Like you could get a patched ROM, but my point is this. Like Final Fantasy II, like a lot of people don't like it, but I'm like the reason they don't like it is because the battle system is so drastically different from the first game. Final Fantasy III, I'm gonna say something that's unpopular. Final Fantasy III is basic as fuck. The only real no, go ahead.
I think everything it tried to. I think all of its innovations really didn't start to glow until 5 for me.
Yeah. Like people like I would say why play Final Fantasy 3 when you could play Final Fantasy 5, which is a better version of Final Fantasy 3.
Right.
More job classes. It's easier to level up your job classes, and unlike Final Fantasy 3, where like basically the Onion Knight sucks, aka the Vagabond. In Final Fantasy V, every class that you master, the passive abilities are always active
Hmm.
in your vagabond form. So basically, you all those passive abilities that you used to have to equip, if you master that job, they're always active on your characters,
Nice.
which is fucking insane. It means that you can create super characters. Like, hey, you want to have a white mage who also is a monk? So they have massive amounts of health, but they can also heal. You can do that.
Hmm.
The only useless class in Final Fantasy V is the blue mage,
Oh,
because
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and I'd actually tried to run that. It's just so case specific. Like, I hate the idea you just keep spamming until you learn that one really busted ability from this one boss. You only have this one opportunity to
Yeah,
fight.
99 needles. I think it's from the Cactuar. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you learn 99 needles, because it's always guaranteed to do like 900. I think it's either 9,999 damage or 999 damage. Like basically, it's always going to do a massive amount of damage. 99 needles. Unfortunately, the reason the blue mage sucks is because, um, in order for them to learn an ability, they have to get hit by it. But the blue mage's other stats suck, so if they take damage, they're probably gonna die from that hit and not learn it.
Right.
So it's like if you're gonna go blue mage, you should have another job class mastered like monk, so you have a huge amount of health, so that when you take that hit, you're not gonna die. Um, but yeah, 4, 5, and 6 I would say are the best Final Fantasies. 7 I think is overrated. I think 7 is a shittier version of Final Fantasy 6.
Hmm.
Um, if Final Fantasy 6 is Star Wars: A New Hope, Final Fantasy 7 is The Force Awakens.
Ooh.
Like you basically, it's like, oh, this is just A New Hope but done poorly.
And then
Like
Final Fantasy
Sephiroth.
8 is some whackness. I'd say Final Fantasy 8 to me is the Ewok movies.
I mean, yeah, but the first Ewok movie is pretty good. It's not great, but for a family movie and lower budget, it's actually pretty good.
No?
I would say Final Fantasy VIII is the Final Fantasy II of the fifth gen, because they
Sure.
tried something different. Because Final Fantasy VIII had some good ideas, like you basically having a scalability system where enemies, like normal enemies, would scale up to a certain level, but bosses were always like X amount of levels above your party. That's
Hmm.
actually a cool idea. The problem is that if you, like it breaks convention of previous Final Fantasies, because in previous Final Fantasies it's like, oh, I'm getting my ass kicked in this new area. I need to go back to the previous area and grind some more in order to become more powerful. You're punished for grinding in Final Fantasy VIII.
Fortunately.
Yeah. And I think nine's pretty good. Nine's a throwback to like Final
Yeah,
Fantasy IV.
I like it. It is a little tougher to go back to since it has active time battle, but it's so close to the originals that it almost feels like the animations have to be slowed down. It being a 3D game
Yeah,
to match.
they're remastering that. Allegedly, the rumor is they're
Okay.
remastering it, and I'm okay with that because I like Final Fantasy. I like Final Fantasy VIII. I like Final Fantasy IX. I think 8 gets a bad rap because just they drastically changed the battle system. Um, Not the battle system, but like how enemies scaled with your party,
Mm.
which kind of is counterintuitive. I
Funny,
think
I'm actually somewhere the opposite. I don't think Final Fantasy 8 gets a bum enough rap, but go on.
I think 10, if you can ignore Titus's annoying personality, is actually
Hmm.
pretty damn good. Um,
Yeah, I like it.
if
It's about the end of where Final Fantasy really strong for me.
yeah, I think to me, my issue with Final Fantasy X is that the first time I played it, I thought Titus was the main character. Titus is not the main character. Titus is the
Oh.
audience avatar. The main character of Final Fantasy X is Yuna,
Hmm.
because it's her journey. And Titus, unlike Vaughn in Final Fantasy 12, Titus does have a story arc. He is a different character from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. Like he goes
Right.
from being an annoying piece of shit who you wish you could throw down a flight of steps after you tied his hands behind his back, to being an adult.
Yeah.
and like he has that journey. Vaughn in Final Fantasy 12 is worse than Titus. He's like
He's a cutout with stats.
I mean, he's like Final Fantasy 12. Ironically, feels like Final Fantasy 12 feels like it's heavily inspired by Star Wars.
Oh, definitely.
And Vaughn was supposed to be your Luke Skywalker analog. The problem is that Vaughn has no character arc to speak of. He's the same annoying piece of shit in the beginning of the game at the end of the game. His story arc is non-existent.
To me, I always describe Vaughn and Penelo as the R2D2 and C3PO.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Vaughn and Penelo, if Vaughn and Penelo were just made into side characters that you could use occasionally, I thought Balthier and Fran would have been better main characters, or Bosch or Ash would have been better main characters, or even if they had switched and said, okay, Vaughn was the brother who got murdered by Bosch's twin brother in the coup that got that kingdom annexed by the Empire. That would have been cool. But no, we get Vaughn, who's just fucking annoying and useless.
Yeah, that was the very beginning when Square had a very strong hold on saying, no, these are the type of characters we're going to be making, because going after that, there just wasn't any sort of body or visual diversity amongst their characters. Like the cast of 13 looks monochromatic outside of Saz, and
What, the black
15's
guy?
even worse. Yeah.
The one black guy, the black guy who they gave a fucking afro with a fucking bird nesting in his head, in his hair.
Blah.
Yeah. Fuck Square Enix with that one.
Yeah.
It wasn't very good. Yeah, Final Fantasy 13 was trash, and they were so busy trying to make Lightning into the new Cloud Strife. It was embarrassing. It's like, come on, dude, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, they were ready to make this into another franchise, and it never materialized. Like, as soon as that, because they had this PSP game that they called it Jito or something, that just got delayed so much that it ended up becoming an HD PS4 game that looks terrible because it's just essentially a really dolled up PSP game
Yeah,
ported to PS4.
yeah. But Sony did a lot of that back in the day.
Okay.
Like they would take a game for the PSP or the Vita, and it wasn't doing that well, and then they would port it over to the PS3 or the PS4. They're like, oh, well, yeah, this is HDified. And I don't know how they HDified it, because the shit looked terrible.
I think the sole exception to that was a Gravity Rush at the time, because I always felt like that game did deserve that port. It pretty much was one of the carrying legs of the Vita for the short life it did live.
Yeah, I mean, you know. But anyway, yeah, I think Final Fantasy for me started like the last good Final Fantasy game was 12. Even though technically speaking, 12 is not a Final Fantasy game; it's a Final Fantasy Tactics RPG.
Yeah,
it's not final. Like the last Final Fantasy game is 10. That's it. Like 13, shit. 11, terrible MMO. 13, shit. 13.2 is a shitty Chrono Trigger clone. 13.3 is a shitty Majora's Mask clone.
Now the term is it's like when you put Kellogg's on something, you just say, oh, it's a breakfast food. Final Fantasy is just become a brand now. Final Fantasy Chronicles doesn't resemble any Final Fantasy. I still enjoy it, but it's not Final Fantasy. What's another one? Those Final Fantasy mobile games don't resemble Final Fantasy at all. They just call it Final Fantasy because it's a name. It draws the eye.
Well, I would say that Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles has a lot of the Final Fantasy tropes in it. Like you have Magicite, you have Moogles, you have Chocobos, but it's its own thing. Like they even created their own races. It's its own universe. I will say this much though: Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles has one of the best bosses I've ever seen in a Final Fantasy game. Rayam.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Rayam.
Oh yes.
The final boss and how you have to fight him. Like it's like wow. Like okay. My problem with Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles is the marketing was terrible. They're like Final Fantasy's finally returned to Nintendo consoles. Okay. Not telling people that this is not a traditional Final Fantasy game. It's an action adventure game, kind of like with a multiplayer twist, kind of like Gauntlet. Gauntlet Legends.
Yeah,
If
no,
they'd
it
have
always
done that, people would have been like, okay.
Yeah.
Kadoshi, you have anything to say? You're being very quiet.
Oh, um, I've only played. I'm only interested in. Be honest with you, I'm only interested in the older Final Fantasy games.
Okay.
Like the SNES games. I enjoyed Final Fantasy X. Um, that's really the only 3D game I really got into. Uh, Final Fantasy VII. I think I only hate it because it's just popular to like. So I guess I'm just a contrarian when it comes to that game.
I've had that
'Cause
happen.
I think it's I think it's overrated. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's severely overrated compared
Yeah.
to 6.
Yeah, I think
But
the marketing for that was really good, and there are some good
yeah,
things about Final Fantasy VII. Like I do like how each of the characters have their own side stories that tells you why they are the way they are, and their own little like personal journeys. Except for Cloud, whose personal story actually is the weakest one, which is kind of weird. No, you're just a shitty. You're just a failed Genova DNA clone.
I think the premise of Final Fantasy VII is interesting, but I just think as I've heard the character's motivation described, the main villain, I just think that's a little weird.
Yeah.
It's so esoteric. I don't even think it's meant to be deep at all.
No.
Like here's the thing, it's not deep. None of them have ever really been deep, but his just takes surprise and just absolutely nonsensical.
No, I think Kefka's was deep. Because basically he was one of the kids who was kidnapped by the Empire and experimented upon, and he survived, and he went fucking crazy, being constantly exposed to espers, dead espers, magicite, and being infused with it in order to give him magical abilities and turn him into a maginite.
I honestly think he's kind of like Fear Bradley in a sense.
Yeah, but here's the thing: he went crazy, but he's not insane. Like Kefka had a plan, and he pulled it off, and he succeeded at it, and he had a reason to. It's like he's like, look, I'm gonna kill the Emperor because fuck this guy. He's the architect of my suffering for so many years, and look, listen, I'm now the god of magic. All magic springs from me. Now worship me. You won't? I'm gonna fucking destroy the world. He had a plan. Now, there was a reason for everything Kefka did. There was a plan to it all, even though he was fucking insane. Now, look at Sephiroth's. Yeah, look Sephiroth's motivation. My alien mother, who was dead before I ever came into the picture. They used her DNA to make me, and I was one of the few clones that actually was viable. And I'm just mad that the clone body of my quote-unquote mother died, so the whole world has to be destroyed. It's like, really? You fucking mama's boy? Everyone has to die because you're a mama's boy? Really? Yeah, get the fuck out of here with that shit. Bitch.
Yeah.
I just...
It's even worse in the extended material because whoever's in charge of the writing, because I won't say his goal in 7 is pretty clear. I still find it stupid, but his goals in the extended material and remake, I don't know. This guy's just on some crack.
Yeah, it gets worse. Yeah, because they keep on trying to. If you have to go after the fact and add more shit to make your story make sense, your story sucks.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't need, Final Fantasy V, I will admit, has a kind of a stupid final boss. It's X-Death. It's an evil spirit that was bound within a magic tree that is the architect of all the fucked up shit that happened in both the world of light and the world of dark. Okay, got it. Cool. Okay? But, he had a plan. He's like, look, I'm gonna take over both worlds. Okay, cool. You got a plan. I got it. I'm going to get out of this tree. I'm going to take over the world. Okay, cool. I got it. X-Death. Final Fantasy IV. I think it was like the ultimate evil bound within this moon arc that actually had
he was like an alien invader that
Yeah, but he had a plan. He had like
Right.
brainwashed people, like took over governments. I'm like, this motherfucker is sophisticated.
Right.
I mean, Sephiroth is just like, dude, you're just fucking,
Well,
you're just a,
well,
you're just a bitch.
I think what gets me about him is that he doesn't. He is present in story, but he only comes around to fuck with Cloud. Like every time he does come in, he comes and goes like he's a Looney Tunes character. Kills something and vanishes. Like you don't ever really get to see him at large or his design unfolding. He just pops in and out, taunts Cloud, and vanishes.
And why are you look, there were only 3 viable Genova clones, okay? There was that one that I forget which one. The one that failed. I forget which one. Like the first one, Sephiroth and Cloud. And Cloud is the shittiest one. He's the one that was so much of a failure, but not a failure enough to die when he came out of his pod. Okay? That's
Right.
it. That like Cloud is like and I get the point of Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII's journey for Cloud is that he basically, like, because up until like I think the second act, Cloud's whole motivation is not his own motivation; it's Zack Fair's motivation. Because basically, Zack Fair was part of the special soldier group that went to go stop that breach that happened when Sephiroth went crazy when he found out he was a Genova. He was a clone created from Genova DNA. He slaughtered the soldiers and he fucked up Zack Fair, gave him a mortal wound, and accidentally broke open one of the pods in the fight. And out came Cloud. He touched Zack Fair and got his memories and part of his personality. Okay, so basically, all of the motivation that Cloud has in the first 2 acts of Final Fantasy VII are based upon like his motivation is based upon Zack Fair's dying wishes, regards, personality. Right. Okay? Like, he doesn't even like Tifa on a personal level. The only reason he has any type of affection for Tifa is because Zack Fair liked Tifa.
Aerith, you meant?
No, Tifa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Tifa was Zack Fair had an affection for Tifa. Aerith, believe it or not, Aerith is the first character that Cloud under his own motivations, something that he himself likes. A person that he himself under his own motivations likes and gets to know, which is why Aerith or Eris being murdered by Sephiroth is so important, because basically it's the first time that Cloud has a reason to face Sephiroth that isn't a someone else's plan, someone else's motivation, someone else's purpose.
All right.
Here's all I'm saying. Final Fantasy VII is like, even though I talk a lot of shit about Final Fantasy VII, it does have a lot of really cool shit going on. The problem is that it's following up Final Fantasy VI, which does the same shit so much better. You know?
Yeah.
Like, Final Fantasy VII is like the shittier version of Final Fantasy VI. Like, you know, like Cid is a shittier version of Cyan. Kate Sith is a shittier version of Setzer. Barrett is a shittier version of Edgar. I don't think they have an equivalent to Sabine, but who else? Yuffie is a shittier version of Locke.
Ooh.
No, they do have a version of Tifa is a hotter version of Sabine, but she can't suplex a fucking train, so you know that little midriff t-shirt and those suspenders are great, but she can't fucking suplex a train, so fuck her.
It's kind of funny because a lot of the fixings and a lot of the psychological bits that people loved about Final Fantasy VII, I think just because right now I'm playing Xenogears, which originally was supposed to be a pitch for Final Fantasy VII, later on a pitch for a Chrono Trigger sequel before it became its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of does those existential bits so much better, in my opinion. But I will talk more later on that.
Oh yeah, a lot of games do that. I mean, like I said, I personally think that I personally think that this is my own personal opinion. I think that if you want to play a game that does existential, not existential, but like that tells a great story while at the same time going through a lot of. Oh, never mind. We'll talk about it later. Anyway, let's keep it moving. Anything else anyone wants to say about Final Fantasy 16 finally going to real-time combat before we move on to the next
we
topic?
covered it extensively, if you ask me.
Yeah, we did. Okay, so let's keep it moving to our next topic, which is the Intellivision Amico is fucked. That's in all capital letters, my friend. So basically, for those of you who don't know, the Intellivision Amico, the Amico, he's my friend, the Amico. The Intellivision Amico, which I mean, basically has been a scam. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It has been a scam. The Intellivision Amico company, like this shit was supposed to come out in 2020. And then they pushed it back to 2021, and then they pushed it back to the end of 2021. And basically, it's been a, how can I put this nicely? Have you ever seen a baby wearing a diaper, and the diaper blows out? That's what the Intellivision Amico has been. The diaper's blown out, but the baby's still pooping.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm talking explosive diarrhea with the Intellivision Amico. So basically, the last time we saw the Intellivision Amico's console, it was trying to sell NFTs and it was being described as a car crash of a device. And we thought that was as bad as it could get, but it got worse, okay? So the public frontman and former CEO of Amico was openly insulting critics, calling them gaming racists and mentally unstable, while having been found between regular shitposting and baseless legal threats to be following several notable white supremacists on Twitter. Now, for those of you who don't know who Tommy Tallarico is, he's the guy who used to be a game composer for games like Aladdin and Earthworm Jim, stuff like that. Now, this is just me. You know, I love Koji Kondo and I love David Wise. They have made some of the best video game music of all time. But if someone told me they were making a console, I still wouldn't give them any money. Because they don't know shit. Just because you're successful in one aspect of your career doesn't mean you know shit about other things. Like, you know, I have a bachelor's degree in sociology and politics, political science. Just because I have 2 degrees in that shit does not mean I know shit about running a 3-star Michelin kitchen. They're two fundamentally different skill sets involved with those 2 things. Okay?
That's right. A restaurant manager can manage a restaurant doesn't mean he knows how to cook.
Yeah. And just because I run a business where like people can come and eat doesn't mean I can run a Fortune 500 company. Now, there are some skills that are shared between all 3 things, but you can't just pick me up and throw me into this other thing and expect it's going to be successful. That is stupid. But Tommy Tallarico thought that, or at least he gained people in thinking that. So let me finish with this report because it just keeps on getting worse. You know, it's like Precious the movie where you're like, oh man, surely it can't get worse. It gets worse. Oh God, no.
Impossible.
Yeah. It's like surely this poor woman's been raped. She's pregnant by her stepfather. It can't get worse. Oh, he's got AIDS and he gave her AIDS. Oh, Jesus, it can't get worse. Oh, and she can't read. Oh God, no. How can it get? It can't get any worse. Her mother's also beating her ass. Oh God, it can't get worse. Like it's like no matter what happens, it just gets worse. So let me. Here's how it gets worse after former CEO Tommy Tallarico, who was calling people gaming racists, which is stupid. and mentally
What is
unstable.
that? Yeah, what is a gaming racist?
I guess people who don't like the same shit you like. You know how people like, well, I mean, because remember, this was a long time ago, but Hip Hop Gamer used to call people gaming racist if you didn't like the PlayStation.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Shots fired. As GI Biz has reported, the company is in serious financial trouble. With an SEC, that's the Securities and Exchange Commission, you cannot run a large business without filing with them. From earlier in the year, revealing that they were in significant debt, including an aggregate of $3.1 million in outstanding loans.
Jeez.
Yeah, the console's hardware is basically the same as $100 Android phone from 2016. So I said 7 years before the podcast. It's actually 8. 8-year-old hardware running games that look like absolute dog shit.
You could do worse than the Switch.
Yeah, including a port. Well, to be fair, the Switch is running hardware that was top of the line in 2017, 2018. But here's the difference. Nintendo splurged to not use a mobile CPU. They're using a CPU that was used in like those mini gaming laptops, like those thin gaming laptops from 2017, 2018. Which, it's still kind of a shitty graphics card, but, it's not as bad as this shit. Because those laptops still would cost you back then, like, at least, $800. Not $100 shitty Android phone, under $100 shitty Android phone. The console has been delayed multiple times now. Originally due out in October 2020, it was pushed back to April 2021, then October 2021, and now in June 2022.
Why is this fun? This sounds like it's a Kickstarter fund.
Oh yeah, initially they tried to do Kickstarter, but Kickstarter you actually have to have a working prototype, and they didn't. Right. So they went to Indiegogo, and then they did an investment website where it's legit. Like, this is where the SEC filing came from. And it turns out they stole those people's money too. They stole a lot of people's money. I didn't give them shit though, because I was like, Tommy Tallarico, I heard he's an asshole. I'm not trusting him. And now they're saying June. No, go ahead.
No, I was saying earlier, and I'd almost thought of it because of Earthworm Jim 4, but like I said, is that really enough to make me put money in that?
I mean, if Earthworm Jim is being made, Earthworm Jim 4, Earthworm Jim 4, or Earthworm Jim 3, depending on how you look at it, it would probably be on multiple consoles and not a shitty console that's running hardware that was old in 2016. Mm-hmm. Just saying. So they lied and said it's coming out in June 2022, which is bullshit. I mean, come on, man.
Right.
I mean, why I'm not a parent, but parents know when their kids are lying. It's like, come on, you're lying to me. And they're lying. They're lying. This official unboxing video, which was made to look like a final retail console, but was actually a one-off production since manufacturing has yet to begin, was released back in March. It lays bare so many of the console's issues. From the ghastly menu to its cheap controllers, this looks like something you would buy for $20 on Wish. On Wish.
Yeah, like, I don't know if you've ever been to, like, a flea market, and there's always that one, like, stand of counterfeit crap, and they always release these really super cheap, probably beaten out by the SNES little games.
You mean those bootleg consoles? Where they're like 300 games, and it's like maybe 50 of them are real games, and it's just repeated over and over again, or shitty hacks of other games. Yeah,
it's like a huge Game and Watch device.
Yeah. So basically, that would be fine if this was $20, but the Intellivision was asking for at least $180 for one of these, which is insane. And then they raised the price to like $250. Oh no, like $289. Sorry.
$2.89, I hope.
No, $289, so that it's under the Switch.
Goodness gracious.
Anyway, Yeah, I'm not going to show the unboxing. If you guys want to see, let's see, how long is this? If you want to see 8 minutes and 32 seconds of bullshit, I advise you go to the link, to the Kotaku link in the chat and watch it. It is very informative. If you ever take a business course and you want to see, or a business psychology course where you learn about like marketing and stuff like that, you can see the fallacies and how they're basically trying to manipulate people. It's actually kind of funny. But anyway, that's just the recap. The news today is that the company has had to send out an email out to its pre-order customers, letting them know that things are not going great. Intellivision has had to cancel a $5 million crowdfunding campaign after it only raised $60,000. Have launched attempts to try to license Intellivision IP for release on other platforms to try to raise some cash, and have had so many refund requests that they can't process them fast enough. And most alarming of all, have made layoffs, resulting in a significant reduction in staff. The complete email, signed by new CEO Phil Adam and first posted by the Nerf Report's Bryant Chappell, is below. I'm not going to read this, but basically it's business speak saying that they're fucked. Enough said. Enough said. So, what are your guys' thoughts? Agree, disagree, care, don't care?
It's astounding, really, because like I said, it had fallen out of my had fallen out of public thought for me, like around the time it was revealed. It's hilarious, really. That's all I can say.
What, Kenoshi?
You should have just taken the money and ran.
Yeah, but they can't do that because they actually filed, like they actually took, like the way they gathered a lot of their money is that they went to a website that is for businesses that want to get investors. So they had to file an SEC filing, which means they bound themselves up in a lot of paperwork that they can't just take the money and run. If they do, they're going to go to jail for a long time.
You think they probably could have taken some advice from who's that guy we talked about a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, who did that PC forgery?
Oh, you mean the guy who was making fake big bucks PC games?
Yeah, maybe they should have taken a page from him.
I don't know. This isn't the first time someone tried to make a fake console. The Coleco Chameleon guy, Mike Kennedy, tried to do the same thing a few years ago. Here's the thing. It's really hard to make a retro console.
Right.
Okay. At this point, I would only trust a company who has actually made a successful retro console before I trust them to make one now. Especially something that most people, if you ask the average gamer, do you remember the Intellivision? Most of them don't remember the Intellivision. I vaguely remember the Intellivision. And I never had one. I just vaguely remember it being a thing. Let me put it this way. Sony fucked up their retro mini console. Sony. Okay? Nintendo launched 2 mini consoles. Both of them were successful. NES Mini, SNES Mini. Sorry, NES Classic, SNES Classic. Okay, they both were pretty good. Sega launched a mini console. It's pretty damn good. It was so good that they're going to launch another one.
Oh.
It's only in Japan, but
called.
What?
What was it? The Mega Drive, I think it was called.
Yeah, it was the Mega Drive. Like I'm going to keep it real, okay? But here's the difference, okay? Nintendo and Sega have experience launching consoles. They've done it before. Right? Intellivision just felt like amateur hour. It felt like the Ouya, but on an even worse scale.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. But the Ouya, like, here's the thing. Whatever you want to say about the Ouya came out. It was a product that existed. It was supported for 2 years. The Intellivision hasn't even hit market yet. We haven't even seen the shit get manufactured. So I don't know what to say. You guys have any thoughts before we move on to the Kenoshi?
No.
You have any thoughts
No.
about the Amico? All right. Okay. I guess we can move on to Street.
I hope these I hope there's actually punishments for these guys.
Well, I'm pretty sure a lot of them indemnified themselves. Like they maybe like you had to sign a thing like if we lose your money, you can't sue us, some shit like that. But I'm pretty sure those won't be clad if people can prove there was financial malfeasance, which I think there was. Because these people, the first thing they did was they opened up this huge office in California, and people who were part of the board of directors and like Tommy Tallarico himself were paying loans, were giving loans to the company and then paying them back to themselves at exorbitant interest rates. So let's say they would loan the company $300,000 and then give it like a 50% interest rate so that after a while they'd take out $450,000, shit like that. So, if you guys want to hear more about the Intellivision Amico debacle, I advise you go and watch, go and read the always awesome, or go and listen to the Completely Unnecessary podcast with Pat the NAS Punk and Ian Contry. Ian Ferguson. Really, really good stuff. They really get in depth and like investigate it and call it out. It's really good. I'm not going to get into it because I haven't been following it that long. Well, I haven't. I've been following it. I haven't been following it on my channel. So, but I just thought, yeah, that's interesting. You guys should hear about it. Next, we've gotten some more information from Street Fighter 6. Guile looking a little older and still kicking people's asses.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I especially like typer analyzing the trailer for gameplay bits, and I liked because one cool thing Street Fighter V did was they finally gave Guile 3 moves because Guile historically was known for just using 2 moves, just Sonic Boom, flash kick. I mean they worked
Well,
for
he
him, but
had
they
his
were like
grapples. He had his aerial
right.
backbreaker and
Yeah, it was mostly
that's it.
he only
he
had
just
like
had
2 specials.
yeah. And his aerial
Yes,
backbreaker was very specialized. You could only use it in certain
right.
situations.
So in Street Fighter V, they had given him new ones. The caveat being that they were locked behind a certain gauge,
Mm-hmm.
which was unfortunate. So one of his new moves was he could just throw out a flurry of little tiny booms, and he could throw out a stationary boom that could just sort of make like a wall between 2 people, between him and his opponent. And they incorporated that as part of his regular move set, which just makes it more exciting to me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not too happy about his new stage theme music.
Oh yeah,
Why
the
do you
soundtrack is
guys
very
keep on trying to
divisive.
fix perfection? You'll never do better than the original. Stop trying to
Yeah,
change it.
they actually released a few themes, and it's very clear now they're doing the Street Fighter 3 thing where they're just giving everyone brand new themes. Like they're not doing arrangements or rearrangements of their old themes because just like how Chun-Li's Street Fighter 3 theme is completely brand new, her Street Fighter 6 theme, which was posted by Capcom yesterday, completely brand new, doesn't resemble anything from Street Fighter 2 or Street Fighter 3.
It has a little bit of it in there,
Yeah,
but not a lot.
like a little bit of the theme, but then it goes off into its own thing. And I'm like, okay, fine. You want to change themes? Well, give us the option to like Smash Brothers does, where you can set the stage theme yourself. Because I don't like the new shit. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't like the new shit. I want to be able to play the original Guile theme because it's
Sure.
fucking awesome.
The one thing I'm looking forward to is because the composers this time around apparently a group called Cap Jams, which does amazingly good remixes of a lot of Capcom's classic themes. I hope they knock it out for me personally.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, you're probably going to have some of the Street Fighter Alpha characters show up because it's like the single player takes place in Metro City. So we're probably going to get Mike Hagger, Guy, Cody. you see Damned in the trailer, in the distance, so we'll probably get Poison and Andore. At least one Andore. Or when I was a kid, I couldn't. I'm like, oh, it's a big, huge Italian-looking dude with the that hair. It's Andre the Giant. Andre Junior, Andre Senior. Just saying, they need to bring back Andre. Bring back those classic characters. There's going to be 22 characters, so I hope they bring back Bison, give him a better body so he can be the cheap bastard he was back in the day with those damn slide kicks and and those damn and that damn Psycho Crusher.
Right.
Cheap bastard.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm pretty hyped for it because it's launching with 22, which is a massive, massive, massive improvement over 16, which at the time is normal for a budget title. But this was Street Fighter; it led the genre in the 90s. You could have done much better than that. And 22 characters, single player modes already confirmed, and they had an interview with directors recently. And they showed a lot of gameplay, which makes it super exciting. I personally it's with Xenoblade 3, my most anticipated game, although it's coming next year. If a beta comes soon, I'm getting on that immediately.
I got to be 100%. My most anticipated game one of my most anticipated games of this year is coming out next week.
Oh yeah, what's that?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah, and it has what was it, 6-player co-op, I believe it was.
6-player co-op, and they added Casey Jones. I don't like Casey Jones, but they added him.
That's some Marvel combos right there. That sounds fun.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I'm glad that game is finally coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of worried about it.
Yeah, I thought I thought it was going to come out in August or September, but it's coming out next week, Thursday.
Oh, very exciting.
And I was going to get the one that has all the bennies and shit, but.
Mm-hmm.
That's only on like PS4 or PS5 or Switch, and I want to get it on PC.
Of course.
Which doesn't come out with which there's no physical version. I couldn't even play a physical version because my PC doesn't even have a fucking CD drive.
Yeah, physical for PC has dwindled, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's gone down. I mean, even if they do give you a physical version, they just give you a code to download the shit with. It's like, come on, man.
I remember physical PC boxes. They used to be like VHS cases, and they had like a bunch of. Yeah.
Not anymore.
Although I hated seeing that Microsoft Live Arcade logo. Ruined the box for me.
Yeah, because if you didn't have an account with them, you couldn't play your fucking game. That's why I didn't like playing Black and White back in the day, or the original Fable on PC. Like, you had to have a Microsoft account. I'm like, I fucking hate because Microsoft on your Xbox would run relatively smoothly if you had a stable internet connection. PC, sometimes it would just drop. So you're playing your game, oh, you can't connect. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? I bought the game, I have it installed. Why the fuck? I hate you, Microsoft.
Right.
Yeah.
Damn you. Anyway. So yeah, I'm looking for. There's a lot of games coming. I'm looking forward to Destroy All Humans 2, the remake, Reprobed. That's coming out August 13th, and then later on that month is Saints Row Reboot, aka Saints Row 5. So.
Man, that was fast. I think that got pushed up, I believe.
What, Saints Row 5?
Yeah, because I can't help but think it was revealed at the beginning of this year.
No, it was supposed to come out in like earlier this year. It was supposed to come out.
Okay.
It was supposed to come out like February or March, and then they pushed it back to August because they were like, we have to polish it up more. But they released a demo where you can create your own boss. Which is your main character, which they did that for Saints Row 3. Like when they launched Saints Row 3, before they launched it, you could go, you could get like a pre-game thing, or you go online and you could make your character before you played the game and save it, and then download other people's pre-made characters and use them as
Ooh.
your pre-made character. It's actually a pretty cool thing. They're marketing wise, they're really taking some of their best things they did from back in the day. I'm kind of upset that they're like, well, the sense of humor was too childish, and I didn't like the sense of humor. I'm like, yeah, but I liked taking my car to a place called Rim Jobs because it was sophomoric sexual humor. They just switched the name slightly. Now it's Jim Robs instead of Rim Jobs.
I mean, in a way that makes me laugh for a different reason.
Yeah. It's Jim Robs. This redneck looking, inbred looking dude with one eye. He's wall eyed. One eye is looking one way, the other eye is looking another way. And I'm like, you know, why are we always so afraid of sexual humor and jokes?
No, I agree. It's just it's particularly American audiences too.
It's like, how dare you have breasts in your game? It's like, okay. Irony though, in this game you can actually have breasts in the game. Uncensored breasts too. Cause I made a female character by accident. I'm like, oh shit. If I make a female character, I can make her stacked like Jessica Rabbit. What else? What other games am I looking forward to this year? Those are the big ones. I'm not really looking forward to any other quote unquote AAA
I
games come out this
saw
year.
that one thing you posted. It was Paper Mario esque in that
Plucky Squire?
yeah, in that it used a very creative visual media presentation. I don't know if that's this year though, but if it is,
No, it's
I'm so
2023. It's 2023.
it's
Yeah.
fine. But no, I'm excited. So that looked incredible.
Yeah, I looked at it and I was like, man, now see, if Paper Mario did that, like, I wouldn't mind them changing up the battle style if they were doing that, where you were going out into the quote unquote real world as Paper Mario and shit. But it's just the Paper Mario series these days is so overly casualized that I can't really enjoy it, unfortunately. Anyway, Kenoshi, are there any games you're looking forward to?
That Gestalt,
Of Steam and Ash?
yeah, the Steam and Ash or something like that. I'm looking forward to that. I
Yeah.
hope that shows up at some point, like a release date or something. Probably won't get it until 2023.
I think it might come out this year, but it's probably going to be stealth dropped. I think.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Okay, what else? Last Faith looks like it was made by the Blasphemous people who made Blasphemous.
Oh yeah, that one looks really good.
Yeah, it
I
looks
know
like
a buddy.
a Castlevania game.
Yeah, I know a buddy who really enjoys these sort of pseudo combat platformer type games.
Yeah, that looks pretty fun.
Except there's one that I played that I could never beat. I don't know if you ever heard it, called La Mulana or something like that.
Yeah. I when I played that back in the day, I cheated. I played it with a trainer.
Okay, I couldn't beat it. That crap, like, I mean, it's so deceptive.
Oh yeah, you look at it. Oh, this is gonna be easy, and then you play it like, oh fuck, this game is hard.
Yeah.
Oh,
Which
this
Fire?
game is so hard. The game is called La Mulana.
Oh no, he's talking about Witchfire. That was a first-person shooter that was revealed during the Summer Games Festival.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That game
I
looked
kind
kind
of
of cool.
yeah.
That
It
looks
kind of
interesting.
reminds even in between of Hexen and something what Dishonor used to try, and I liked it.
Yeah, it looked cool. I mean, there's a lot of like. I'll tell you one game I'm looking forward to. One Piece Odyssey.
Yeah,
Because it's an
yeah, because
RPG, but it's One Piece.
it's really what they should have done because they did this. They released a game last year, which was essentially this huge open world Spider-Man esque type affair, and it bombed. It bombed in reviews, bombed in sales, and I just thought,
Yeah,
oof,
I remember.
because
I think it was called One Piece Red. Um,
Yeah.
I actually liked that game. I think the reason it bombed was because people were expecting it to be another one of those like Warriors games, and it
okay.
wasn't. Um, and they didn't even communicate that. They were like, okay, well,
Mm.
whatever.
Yeah.
World Seeker, that's what it's called, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that was the one where you could use Luffy's gum arm things to
Mhm.
like grab onto environmental things and move around and go up on top of buildings and shit.
But yeah, no,
I actually
I
liked
would
it, but
absolutely
yeah.
play the JRPG in the. Oh, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
But yeah, because the one thing I do appreciate is because I do think it has a fantastic world
Finding a
building and
multitude of
great characters
historical
settings. I
civilizations.
think the anime adaptation they received is absolutely gimped. It's unwatchable in my opinion. The manga, I mean, it's there if you want to read it. I don't know if someone wants to commit to reading
I've
almost
read the manga.
over 1,000 chapters.
I read it in the beginning on when it was before it was in its own thing.
Yeah,
It was in Shonen
you
Jump.
don't like the One Piece anime?
Not recently, no. It just feels like it's
There's a lot of
uh,
filler. I will
that.
agree with you on
Yeah.
that. There is a lot of filler, but when they like, how can I put this? One Piece's filler is still to me. I find it entertaining.
So much mind the filler. It's when I know they're padding a scene out to sort of meet a runtime that I find
Yeah,
annoying. And I see that they're
yeah,
doing it a lot. Like
yeah.
one blow from an attack, the recoil from it will probably go on for a minute. I was like, come on, let's pick it up.
Yeah, yeah, I can see where that's annoying because Dragon Ball Z did the same thing, where
Hmm.
Dragon Ball would have fights and it felt dynamic. Dragon Ball Z would drag out some shit. Like this fight, like literally the first 2 minutes of this fight took half the fucking episode.
Yeah, and
I'm
it's
like, come
unfortunate
on,
because
man.
it gave it a stereotype that it never shook off. Because in the manga and then in the re-edited Kai, they were never really this hilariously long. They weren't short, maybe around the 30 to 40. But this crap was your whole year.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. It is. They are kind of making it too long, but
I do enjoy the filler in that since it's an original concept. They don't they don't actually pat it out too often, and I actually find the animation is a lot more consistent throughout.
yeah, that's how I feel. I do like the animation, and I know some people
Hmm.
are gonna get mad when they hear that, but I think the anime. You're right. It could be better, but I'm not like, oh my god, it's absolutely terrible. I like
Sure.
it.
Sure, but an RPG that fits like a glove in my opinion. Uh, I don't think they'd cover the whole damn thing. That if they tried that, this had to be like a Final Fantasy VII remake multi-part epic. I mean, if they do somehow, that is one big chungus of a game.
Yeah, and it would be ridiculous.
Yeah,
Anyway,
because go ahead.
no, go ahead. Sorry to cut you
Oh no,
off.
because I had played because One Piece once had a Power Stone type game that covered I think the first 3 to 5 arcs, and that was already pretty sizable itself. So I was just sitting making an example about game length.
Yeah, I could see that. Kenoshi, you have any thoughts?
Nah.
All right. We're on to the last segment, which is asshole of the week. Who is your asshole of the week? We have not a huge amount. Whatever you want to come up with, it's yours.
Ah, this week can't think of any at the top of my head right now. I'll let you. I'll just piggyback off yours.
All right. Kenoshi, you have one?
I guess the Coleco people.
Yep. Yep, that's mine. Coleco people for stealing people's money and fucking people over, and no one saying anything about it. Just like, oh well,
All
oops,
right, I'm in agreement.
we stole your shit. Oops. I mean, too bad. We stole your money. Um. Oh shit. Just to piggyback off the last topic, I am also looking forward to the Soul Hackers game.
Okay.
It's coming
Yeah,
to
no,
PC, so
oh, that's good. That's
I'm
good.
not getting it on the PS5 because I'm probably gonna play this with a trainer to make it easy. I'm just not gonna lie to you. I don't feel. Look, I do not play RP. There was a time about 10 years ago I would play RPGs. This game's really hard. I'm gonna enjoy playing a really hard RPG. I'm not like that anymore. I want to play. I want to play an RPG and have fun. I do not want to play an RPG and have it be so damn hard that it feels like it kicked me in the nuts.
No, I can understand that. I'm a masochist, so I still partially enjoy the challenge. Like, not so much that I do super bosses anymore because I'm not that invested anymore. Like, SMT5, unfortunately, to get the secret ending of the game, you do have to fight the super boss, which to me is very counterintuitive. I have to fight the toughest thing in the game to fight some extra story bosses that are weaker than the toughest thing in the game.
Yeah, that's Final Fantasy VII logic right there. Where by the
Yeah.
time you grind strong enough to face off against uh the jewel bosses like Emerald, Ruby, like those bosses, you're so OP that the final boss is a joke. It's like, oh, it's Sephiroth. Die. I did all the side quests, motherfucker. Anyway, um, yeah, yeah, it's you know, that's just how it is. Um,
Right.
Before we end it out, there's some games that I want to share. Um, Thought people might like to hear about them. So
Okay. I'm always curious.
there's a Metroidvania game called 9 Years of Shadow, and it's using a cell shaded art style that looks fucking amazing.
Oh, what was it called again?
9 Years of Shadow.
9 Years of Shadow. Let me look that up real quick.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's a
oh,
trailer
yeah,
on YouTube.
you just showed it. Yeah, no, oh, I thought it was pixel animated. Oh, that's actually really good.
This is so. I mean, it might be. I don't know. It looks amazing.
No, no, it looks very beautiful.
Like now, imagine if Metroid Dread had used an art style like similar to this, and not that shit we got.
Oh, like
Yeah, I don't
something,
like man. Like I'm not as offended by its 3D art style as you
mm,
are. But I would have preferred the pixelated art style.
something like what Bloodstain did with that little SNES throwback minigame they had.
Yeah, either that or if they had just continued the art style, like a better version of the art style they had in Zero Mission.
Right? No, I wouldn't mind if Nintendo went ahead and went over to Dotemu, I think that's what they're called. Just licensed them out and said, "Hey, give us a really throwback game." You know, you guys seem to have you're pretty innovative. You're creative, and you're one of the last few bastions of video game pixel art.
Well, except for indies. I mean, they could have talked to the people who did The Messenger,
Okay.
because that game is very not like not the 16, not the 8-bit areas, but the 16-bit areas,
Mhm.
very Metroid esque,
Right.
or Shadow Ninja.
No. No, that one's really good. Or, I would almost say Skullgirls, but that's more 2D animation more so than pixel art. Um, but yeah, no, if I don't think Nintendo has it in them anymore, unfortunately. But I'm still in support of the idea that if they just license out some dev who was really committed to that, like how Sega did well, for that Sonic Mania, I can't remember if it was actually an independent team or if they just
No,
put the guy in
there were
charge.
people who worked for Sega who were just fans of the 2D of the. Well, it was initially indie people who were just like who were just fans who were modding Sonic the Hedgehog games, and
Hmm.
then they hired them. They're like, "Oh, this is really good," and then they made Sonic Mania, and it was like, this is what you guys should have been doing for years. Why the fuck did fans have to make a better 2D Sonic game than Sega could?
And I
That's
remember
embarrassing.
it had irked some fans because for Sega it was really just a teaser or a promo game for Sonic Forces, which no one remembers anymore.
Yeah, because Sonic Forces sucked.
It does. And it had it banked on this one gimmick so hard that disappointed everybody to make your own Sonic OC and the character creator for that game is just so it's so minimal. Like the idea was tantalizing, sure, but when you finally saw the finished product, you're just like,
Uh, I The problem with Sonic Forces in terms of the character creator is you have to unlock new creation, new bits and pieces
mm,
as the game goes along. And because you don't have a really good character creator from the start, like you have to play through some really bad gameplay to get to the fun part of creating
right.
your character. And it's like it doesn't really come together all that well.
I see.
But anyway, that's the end of the cast. Anything you guys want to pimp out before we wrap things up? If you guys have a channel yourself, anything you want to say? Hey, you guys need to play this.
Yeah, Project Console. I'll just be talking about stuff that was announced during Summer's Game Fest. So yeah, just be on the lookout for that.
All right.
And I'll pimp that out too, since I have nothing to pimp out.
Yeah, I'll try and make it if I'm able. This is Mr. Red Fox on Prior to BS Busters, and I have a video coming out tomorrow. I'm
Nice.
still I recorded the footage and I have to do the put the sound into it and edit it and all that type of stuff. But that's gonna be fun. That should be coming out tomorrow sometime. But anyway, that's the end of the video. Rate, comment, share, subscribe. We typically have a podcast every Wednesday and Saturday on this channel. However, my schedule's changing because business shit's going on. But even in the future, we probably on this channel will continue to have at least one podcast a week. But with that being said, that's in the podcast. Rate, comment, share, subscribe, and good night.
Night.
Good night.